Welcome back to The Pew, everybody. I'm your host, John Edwards, and here across the table from me, as always, is my co-host and cohort, Victor Adams.
John, I mean, summer is here. You know, kids are out of school, right?
Yeah, it's almost gone.
Right, and you've given me some break time, and really what it is because you've been able to bring in some amazing speakers to come in for the show. And what's awesome is that for me to take that seat back and to kind of listen to what everyone else is bringing to the show is quite an amazing gift. So thank you for giving me a break. I really appreciate it. But also,
what is that supposed to mean? You don't enjoy being here?
Well, I love being here. I do. It's one of those things where I get so much information that I kind of look at myself and going, sooner or later, people think I'm going fraud, because I don't know what I say anymore. But I love, like I said, I love being able to be here. I love listening to the other talented guests you have here, and I know the other people, the listeners have that as well in their minds. So, but we have a lot more people that are coming up that they don't know yet, right?
We had Dr. John Bergsma a couple weeks ago. Dr. Bob was last week, which I always love having him. I think he's been on here like 5 or 6 times now. Of course, we work together in a lot of ways through JP2 Healing Center. Bart Schutz, his brother, is coming on in a couple of weeks. Pete Burak was here for a men's conference. So I recorded one with him. So we've got a lot of things coming, and it is neat. The Lord is, for whatever reason, put me in relationship with a lot of fantastic other evangelists and mentors and people that are running ministries. And it is cool to put their perspective on here because all of them have something to say for and to men, right? And specifically, even if specifically their ministry isn't for that. But I mean, dude, you're humble enough to share your chair. That's, some people wouldn't be like, no, man, like this is my thing too. And you've never been like that. You've always allowed for that. So I appreciate that about you. And for those that don't know, I mean, you don't work full time for the ministry. You have a real day job outside of this beyond showing up. So you're so kind to fit this into your life as it is.
Right. I'm the other guy in the pew that just hangs out.
Yeah. You're more than that, right? Like you help with a lot of the episode stuff. Like you're here for me. You just, I wouldn't want to do this without you. We've said that a million times, and it's probably a bunch of dudes going like, shut up with the mushy stuff and just get going. Yeah. But it's the truth, man. Like when, here lately I have done a lot of these guest episodes because vacations and just everything's crazy when kids are out of school. My dad's needed me more at the farm. He's fallen a couple times lately. Please pray for him.
Doing better though, right?
Yeah. So he's getting better. He's on the mend. He's 84. It takes a while, but yeah. So there's a lot of scheduling conflicts, and to have people to come in here is a blessing. But it also it makes me miss our time together too, because this is a guaranteed hour or two a week that we get to spend together as we're preparing and getting ready, and inevitably talking longer than the podcast probably goes.
Yeah, right. Well, as you remember in the early days, we were doing a show every week. Yeah, and we were worried by show 30 that are people going to listen to it, because the topics that we thought were what people want to listen to, we already thought we were exhausted it. Yeah. But the great thing about the faith is that there's always something that keeps coming back into our hearts to talk about. Yeah. And what's great about it, it resonates with other people who are listening about to what the struggle of life, suffering, loss, grief. I mean, joys as well. Yeah. And so it's a like commiseration of friends that come together to listen to put each other up and pull each other up and say, hey, I'm here with you. Yeah. And I think that's the great gift of our show, is that we tell our faults. We're not pretentious in saying that we've got it all figured out, because we don't. But what we do know is that we're able to share empathy and sympathy for those that are struggling with whatever's going on in their life. You work in ministry, I work in addiction and behavioral health, in my field. So I see a lot of people who are hurting, and it's possibly because they've done everything they could, but yet the spiritual aspect of themselves, they're unaware. They have no idea what's going on or how to get to that point. Yeah. And a show like this is the food to get people back into their faith background, but also to get closer to God. And if that's our gift for the world, man, I'm grateful for it.
I'm 100% in on that, man. You're right. It's like sometimes I refer to this as like sharing our headaches so that other people don't have to experience them, right? Like looking at where we've fallen or the things that God has shown us in our own life. I mean, we talk about all the time, situations with our wives, our kids that we don't handle the best, or just difficulties that come in that we don't receive in the proper way. And, and just the simple things of getting mired down in your mistakes and your failures and all that. It seems like you talk about it a million times, and we probably have. This is our 339th episode. I mean, I dare anybody else to not talk about something over and over again, and that many times. But no, through it all, the Lord is using it, and it just blows my mind. And this show has always been the place where everyday guys can talk about everyday things in front of the one person that can do something about it, Jesus Christ. Because ultimately, on our own, we can do nothing, right? Jesus says in John 15, apart from me, you can do nothing. We always have to come back to him. We're always going to struggle and suffer in our problems and our faults if we're trying to do it alone, if we're building that unholy self-reliance that we talk about so often. So we have to look to God in all things. And really, that's the crux of what the show is. I mean, if you're somebody out here that's new, that's just listening, we picked up I think we just broke 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, which isn't a lot by any means for, when you compare it to some of the other folks out there. But we're growing steadily all the time, and something that this YouTube channel is still only a couple years old because we were always doing everything audio. But the thing that sticks out to me is all the comments and the most searched words and things that come up when people find our stuff is despair, isolation, loneliness, father wound, inadequacy. This is the stuff that people are dealing with. Mm-hmm. And while it's tempting to go out and speak about all these high theological things and these gifts of the church and speak about the magisterium and all those things, there's plenty of things out there that do that. But here, what we're trying to talk about is the matters of the heart, the everyday struggles that people face, because you're always going to have struggles. There's never going to be a day where you're consistently struggle free, right? Until we get to heaven. And so we need help along the way. And really, we start men's groups, and that's the crux of our ministry, is to go out and to build community and accompaniment in our parishes that lack it. The Catholic Church just really suffers in accompaniment. We've talked about that a lot lately in our episode, The Call to Care, and we need each other and things like that lately. But honestly, when people ask me, what is this ministry all about? What is the real crux of it? We exist, Victor, so that no man has to go through it alone. Mm-hmm. That's really it. Because you and I have had to go through it alone in our own lives. We've struggled, we've suffered, we have nowhere to turn before. We've been isolated alone, and so many people in the world are like that. When you look at statistics today, you see that 50% of the world are men, right? 50% of the population is men. 80% of men make up the suicides in the world, right? And there's a huge majority of them in the United States. And the majority of the suicides are 24 to 45-year-old men, right? Guys in the prime of their life that are struggling. And so this ministry exists so that nobody has to go it alone, right? We do that through accompaniment, through the podcast, through building these places that are built on vulnerability and places where men can be real and authentic, and they can find real friendships, not friendships of convenience, but real relationship with Christ and each other. And that's what this podcast is about. That's what this whole ministry has been about. This is why I leave my family multiple times a month to go and help people find places that I didn't have until I went through all my sufferings and the mistakes of my life, and God brought me into that place. We don't want people to go through life alone, right? And it's time to end this epidemic of loneliness and isolation and this belief that our church is just places to go to for sacraments and for all the rules and regulation, but there's not a place for a relationship. That's garbage. That's exactly what Jesus wants with us. And so this ministry exists to provide that specifically for men. Through this podcast, through our books and resources, and through going out and starting groups. We've started almost over 60 groups now, between the ones I've physically gone and done, and that in the diocese we worked with for the leadership summits, where guys have gone out after a day of equipping to start this on their own. We are reaching and changing lives of men. And so I'm asking you, whether you've been here forever or whether you're just here now, to consider supporting us as a monthly partner in the pew. I know you probably get tired of me asking that, but folks, the need is great. We want to build scholarships for churches that that don't have the means to bring us in, right? That have small parishes, 100-person parishes. Those exist out there in the country. They need help too. They shouldn't be limited because they have limited resources, right? So we want to build scholarships. We need to bring on a development person to help us grow so we can bring on more people to work with, right? There's just, the demand is great, and we need your help, because ultimately what we're trying to do is make sure that no man has to feel alone, that no man's in a gutter without a hand reaching down to pull him out of it. So if you want to be that, or you've experienced that in your life where you've been helped by this ministry in a way, please consider giving back so we can continue to multiply. We can make more of people like Victor and guy, like bring them in their gifts and talents and send them out so that we can reach more and more people and bring them to Christ so that they can change their 10-foot radius, their parishes, their families, and the world. So if you'd like to give, if your heart's been moved at all, I'm asking you to consider becoming a monthly partner in the Pew by going to justaguyonthepew.com, clicking the donate button, or going to donorbox.org/pew and clicking a support level there monthly. It doesn't matter what amount it is. If it's $10 or $100, it all helps. But please consider giving to us so that we can help more men realize they're not alone, bring them out of their struggles before it's too late, and bring them into a real relationship with God. So, Victor, thanks for bringing up all that stuff, because I didn't know how we were going to jump into this and didn't really mean to make a commercial out of that. But I mean, these are things that need to be said. A lot of times I hate to ask for money because it's just weird. It's awkward to ask for money. But I know the things that we're doing are changing lives and changing hearts. We get emails all the time from family members, from wives, from men. I mean, I got a donation the other day, and the guy was like, your podcast episodes have changed my life. You know, guys are writing things in like that all the time. And praise be to God for that. It's nothing you and I are doing other than showing up and allowing God to work through us. But thanks be to God that this ministry exists and it's helping people. And we need your help to help more. So, Victor, like as we jump into the show here a little bit further, you know, what you're talking about and what we've been discussing here in the last few minutes is exactly what has come up this week. And, you know, the Lord always does that. I'm like, oh gosh, what are we going to talk about? I've got like 3 hours until Victor shows up. I have no idea. And then something happens. And so I've been writing this book, you know, we talked about it on here, Power Made Perfect. It's getting close to the final rounds of editing. We're hoping to have it out in January. I'm excited to be, you know, to have completed that, you know.
Is there going to be a book tour? Like you can be reading and like.
I don't know if I have time for a tour. I might be able to go on some shows or something. I don't know. It'll be at all my events, and the JP2 Healing Center will sell it and all that. But during the editing, you know, Carrie Daunt, who's Dr. Bob's daughter, has been one of the people diligently working on the editing process. And God bless her, because, you know, I knew my English professor my English teacher in 8th grade wouldn't be proud of, you know, punctuation and grammar and all that. But she's gone through it and really helped me like expound on points or bring in theology in places. And so yesterday I was working on the part of the story that is talking about when Angela went to her Cursillo weekend, and Deacon Jeff, obviously, who people know from being on the show.
Christy was there too.
Christy and Angela, your wife.
Same Cursillo group.
Yeah, and Angela had been struggling to forgive and to get past all the pains I hurt. And the next weekend, I was supposed to speak for the first time here in Memphis, the very first time I ever shared my story. She wasn't happy with that. She wasn't really going along with it. Felt the Lord had moved my heart to do it. And so she finally goes this Cursillo weekend out of the promptings from Christy and some of the other women that went, some of her friends that were going. And, you know, she had this experience where in this grace talk, Deacon Jeff talked about, he's talking about suffering. And he's like, look, we could be upset at suffering. We can be angry that it's happened. We can blame God for it. We can be really mad, and we can miss the graces that come through suffering. Like, and so in Angela's point, as she shared with Deacon Jeff, as we came back from that weekend, you know, she was saying like that talk really brought her into realizing that, like, even though she didn't like the road that we went down, she wound up in the destination of like, John, okay, I hate how this happened, but I always wanted John to be a faithful man who put his family first and was denying selfishness and all those things and becoming more of who I thought he was going to be. He's becoming the husband I wanted, whether I liked the way it happened or not. And by no means am I perfect. She would probably laugh to hear me say, like, John's become the husband I wanted. She's like, there's still a lot of work to do in the background.
You misquoted me. Yeah.
She's probably on the other side of the wall with a cop going like, that's not, you know, accurate. But honestly, like, that would have been possible if it hadn't been for the suffering.
Sure,
and so when we got to that part, that line about the road and the destination, Carrie was like, oh, this is great. And it reminds me of Oh, Happy Fault. And I had heard that years ago when I first started, you know, studying the faith after my reversion, but I hadn't really looked into it in a long time. And so I looked at that. And basically what it is a quote from St. Leo that we use in the Exult in the Easter Vigil every year. But it goes to speak about the fact that even though bad things happen, the fall happened with Adam and Eve, that God still could use that to you know, for Jesus Christ to be incarnated and to redeem us. So that even though like bad things happen, there's a great good that can come from all things. But Victor, as you well know, we all get stuck in our mistakes. We get stuck in the faults that we've had, in the bad choices we've made, or the things that have been done to us, the wounds that we have. And we can get stuck there and believe that God is not bigger than our mistakes. We can believe that there is no hope or redemption for us. And we can get into a place, like I said, of despair. I mean, that's, as I said, when I look at our YouTube analytics, the things that people are searching for are despair, loneliness, isolation, hope, right? This is what people are looking for. But so often those things get stomped out by the devil because, as we've talked about before, we're listening to the wrong voice in our life. Right. So like, oh, happy fault. I want to define that here in a minute. But like, I've been running for a few minutes because of talking about giving and stuff. I want to give you, some moments to jump in here as we get started talking about this, just, to throw out whatever it is that's on your heart.
And the happy fault it's one of those, it's a, what do you call it? Where an oxymoron. Yeah. Happy fault. What does that mean? How can you be happy about a fault that, cost you something? Yeah. Well, the great thing about God and the great thing about faith, and also suffering included, is that suffering comes and allow us to be self-aware of who we are in Christ. Yeah. And realizing that God does love us. We talked about like our life past or our life pathway that led us here. And those who have listened for a long time know my story, know your story. But they also, if they take inventory of their own lives, they can see where that happy fault has happened in one aspect or another, like, met their spouse or got them that job, or they became best friends with this person because of this happened, those little things that kind of add up to bring joy into your life. And for those that are right now in the depths of depression or riddled with anxiety or just in despair because of a loss or anything that has happened that has pushed them off to the trajectory that they thought they needed to be to, or they thought they were going. I have had that happen to me many times. You have had that happen to you many times. Yeah. We all have this destination we think is best for us, but then we get skewed or something happens in our life that we have no control over, and we're fraught with anxiety, we're fraught with anger or whatever, and we're like, if only like Uncle Rico, if Coach put me in state,
Napoleon Dynamite.
I could throw that football out of the mountain. We would have won state. I'd be with my soulmate. We could be that person. Dwelling on something that never happened or will never happen. But the great thing about looking back and looking at your happy faults is that saying, I would never met Christy if I never came to Memphis. I wouldn't know what it's like to be a person of faith if I didn't have my back surgery or my tumor on my spinal cord. I wouldn't know what it's like to be a father because I have a great father, know how to be to daughters. So those are things I think people need to kind of sit down. Yes, whatever's in front of you right now that's just tormenting you, stop for a moment, put it aside, take inventory of what is joyful in your life. Yeah. And that is that, and there's a happy fault that led you to that. And great news is that there's more happy faults in your life to lead you closer to God, and just be open with it. Don't struggle, don't fight. Just know if you have no control over it, pray for it. Allow wisdom to come to your life and your heart, and to trust God. And that is so hard to say. Yeah. In the midst of what's going on in your fight, to trust God. But Saint of Divine Mercy Chaplet has helped me a lot in my life. Yeah. I felt like I don't have no control of my life. Is Jesus, I trust in you.
Sure. Well, and I wanted to define a happy fault a little bit more, but first, I just like what you're saying, why did this happen? We can ask those things all the time because we want to understand, we don't like to suffer. We don't like the difficulties in our life. And we're like, God, if you're supposed to be a good God and you're supposed to love me, then why do I have to go through this? Why is this happening in my life now? These difficulties that I'm facing, why do you allow this if you really love me? And the Catechism answers this, right? In Catechism paragraph 412, it says, but why did God not prevent first man from sinning, right? Because if Adam and Eve hadn't fallen, then we wouldn't be in this mess, right? So why, if God in all of his knowledge knew everything that was going to happen before he created the world, why did he knowingly allow Adam and Eve to fall? Why didn't he just not put that tree there, right? With that apple, with that fruit, and then we wouldn't have been tempted. And then everything would have been perfect, and we wouldn't have to live in a world that's fallen and corrupt and full of sin and death. And so we can ask that, and it's a valid question because we're humans, and our understanding is limited. But as the Catechism says, why did God not prevent the first man from sinning? St. Leo the Great responds, Christ's inexpressible grace gave us blessings better than those that the demon's envy had taken away. So what it's saying there is even though a terrible thing happened, God can still work through greater good through that evil. And so that was like this whole thought of St. Augustine, which he didn't say, oh, happy fall, like St. Leo and others did after it. But the whole conception or concept of, oh, happy fall came from like Augustine's viewpoint of sin and the fall versus the good of God and the providence of God, divine providence. So like what it says about O Happy Fault, which is Felix Culpa, that's the Latin way to say that. It's a theological concept not directly attributed to St. Augustine, but rather a development of his ideas about the fall of man and God's subsequent plan of salvation. It expresses the idea that original sin of Adam and Eve, while a tragic event leading to human suffering and separation from God, ultimately paved the way for a greater act of divine love and redemption through Jesus Christ. And this is the truth. Like, even though it's like what we were talking about with Angela, she didn't like the way that we got there. There was a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. Like, Lord, why didn't you just give me a guy that wasn't addicted to drugs and porn and binge drinking and that was a nice person, right? Well, I don't know the answer to that, but he deemed us to be together, and we had to go through that road to be in the place that we are now, right? And so we could sit and we can question the why all day long, which is never going to really get us anywhere because we're never going to get that answer. Right? Like to this day, I don't know why God allows us to go through that, but I see the benefits that we did. Mm-hmm. I see that like this podcast exists that's helped thousands of people. I mean, through the podcast, the speaking engagements, the men's conferences, the groups that we've launched, the diocesan leadership summits, the blogs, the website, all that stuff. Victor, we've reached over 1 million people. Like, and we continue to each and every day, these reels and all this stuff that's going on with the marketing team that works with us. Like, people are seeing more and more of this, and the message is getting out to more and more people. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't have existed if I didn't go through that pain and suffering and those 17 years of addiction and all those things. But even in that fall, even getting arrested, going to jail, being on the verge of losing my own life, contemplating suicide, like, look at the good that God has brought out of this. And I'm not saying shine a light on me and look at what I've done, right, because none of it's possible without him. And through him ordaining it, blessing it, Deacon Jeff asking me to start a podcast, people believing in me, you giving your life to be here alongside of me. Like, there's so many things that God has done out of this. And I can't tell you how many people have said, like, I was going to take my life, but I heard one of your shows and I decided not to. Like, that's God's grace working through all the junk that I went through. Your surgery where you find out you have a tumor, you had a whole different life plan, right? Going into the army, into the military, doing all those things, and that dream's taken away, right? And then you find your way into like, well, I'll go be a Protestant pastor. And then that didn't work out, right? And you could talk more about that. But then you find yourself in Memphis, as you said, marrying Christy, having a family, becoming Catholic, sitting in that chair right now. And so you could have simply been angry at those circumstances, what happened in your life. But instead, you didn't dwell on those. Maybe you did as human for a minute, but then you moved past them and you started saying, okay, God, what do you want to do with this? And that's where we all have to get, is to not continue to wallow in the things that we've done wrong and to just sit there spinning our wheels, but to look at getting ourselves out of those situations. We can't do that if we don't understand that God can do anything with anybody and pull good out of anything, even the worst evil of one of his angels turning against him, having a huge battle in heaven, being cast out, now becoming the accuser of our brothers and sisters, the father of lies, the evil one, the whatever you want to call him, Lucifer, Satan, who sits here and torments us. Even out of that, the fall of mankind, God brought a greater good, and the fact that Jesus Christ loved us enough to become man and to save us.
Right.
And we need to focus on that instead of the other parts.
Right. And just to kind of piggyback what you're saying is like, do what you can do the best you can do. Like, what you can control in your life, do it to the best ability with love, with trust, with virtual, aspect. The things you can't control, trust God. And for me, that's the earliest lesson I learned when I was 20 years old, when I had that concept of like being surgery, whereas either I may be paralyzed when I wake up or I may not be, 50-50, or it could be cancer. We don't know. So, before going to surgery, like you said, I had that prayer, Jesus, I trust in you. No matter what happens, I will serve you in a wheelchair. I will serve you with walking on my legs, whichever. Yeah. I will dedicate my day, my life to serving you in whatever format you want me to be. We think ministry is like this is the only way to ministry. There's so much ways you can serve people. It doesn't have to be through. It can be through work. It can be through prayer life. It can be like just if you work in accountant or whatever, making sure people get the best they can get on refund or whatever, or real estate agent, make sure you help them find the best house that fits their needs, that isn't going to be falling apart. These are the things that anyone that whatever job you have, you are a form of in ministry to help, to serve, to assist people. And I know customer service is very difficult. It can be very trying, but if you do it right, people will appreciate everything you do for them.
Yeah. And so like, I also want to cover the fact, like, well, some people go like, well, again, why did God have to permit sin in the first place? Yeah. And it's like, it's not to say that sin was necessary, in the sense that God required it to like do good. It just acknowledges that God, in his wisdom and love, like chose to work through the consequences of sin to bring about our greater good. Like that's what it gets down to. And so many of the saints talk about it. Like Saint Thomas Aquinas says, there is nothing to prevent human nature being raised up to something greater, even after sin. God permits evil in order to draw forth some greater good. The Catechism in 311 says this: angels and men, as intelligent and free creatures, have to journey towards their ultimate destinies by their free choice and preferential love. That's because of the fall, right? Because now we have free will, and that free will, God created us with that. Adam and Eve chose wrongly, good and evil come in the world. So that's the part about free choice and preferential love. They can therefore go astray. Indeed, they have sinned. Thus, as moral evil become more harmful than physical evil and entered the world. But God is in no way directly or indirectly the cause of moral evil. He permits it, however, because he respects the freedom of his creatures and mysteriously knows how to derive good from it. So this is the thing. Like the beauty of this oh happy fault, it's a mindset that we can start to have, that even in our worst mistakes, even in those embarrassing moments, even in the places that we're just destroyed in because of things that have happened or things that we've done, we can cry out, oh, happy fall, because you can look at the fall. You could see what happened with Adam and Eve, and you could see that God continued to work a plan, which inevitably wound up with his son, who he loved more than anything, saying, send me, let me go, let me redeem them. I want to give my life for theirs. And so Jesus comes down as one part of the Holy Trinity and gives his life in this beautiful act of love and restoration, so that not only are we redeemed, but we see how we're supposed to redeem others, how we're supposed to live our lives. And that can happen no matter where we've been, right? So it's what it means. Like when St. Paul says in Romans, I forgot what chapter it is or what verse it is. I believe it's Romans 12. I don't know. I'll look it up in a minute and figure it out. But he basically says this. He says, where grace abounds, sin abounds. That's not right. Gosh, I'm messing up. Don't even know the verse, saying it backwards. Yeah. What St. Paul says is, where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. And this is the mindset we have to have. The devil wants us, when we made those mistakes, for it to become our entire identity, to become all we see. We're not a person. We don't have dignity. We're not a beloved son or an heir to the throne, as Paul says in Galatians. We're none of that. We're a scumbag. We're a liar. We're an addict. We're a cheater. We're this. We're that. Whatever it is, our identity becomes, who we are becomes defined by our mistakes if we don't let it. If we let it. And what we're crying out to here through St. Augustine's whole concept of yes, there was a great fault, but there's also a greater redemption and a greater good, is to help us remember and realize that God is bigger than our sins. God is bigger than our problems. God is bigger than our mistakes. And there's nothing we could ever do that can ever eclipse his ability to redeem us constantly in our life, to call us back into real relationship and life-changing love. And so no matter where we've been, we have to start looking to that as the truth and start to live it in our life. So again, Augustine argues that God allowed sin to bring a greater good, but also it makes one's journey back to God more profound and beautiful. Think about that. Like, how many people come up to me and go, man, your story. Like they did an ad for the Redeemed conference we're doing at the end of the month, and it's talking about the JP2 Healing Center and Paul George and myself and what we're going to be doing and all the talks. And the very last thing the lady said was, and if you haven't listened to Just a Guy on the Pew, you need to go listen to John Edwards' story, because wow, is it life-changing? Is it powerful? And the thing is that all the pain that we went through became a beautiful story, right? In the midst of our storms, in the midst of our problems, it doesn't feel that way. It's like, God, why are you doing this to me? Like, why am I made to suffer? Why is there pain and loss? We know somebody that just passed away last night, from cancer, a local guy that goes to our parish, great guy. His wife works at his parish. He ran a brewery here, just a great fella, got a couple young kids, and he passed away. Cancer riddled his body. He had a great fight. And he fell. You were telling me about it earlier. Clark, God bless him. And please pray for his family in this time. But like, you wonder, like, why did that have to happen? Why do those kids have to grow up without a dad at such a young age? Like, why does this have to continue to happen? And we can get caught in that. And we could fall into despair. And the devil can use that to take us away from who God really is, to put up a veil and draw his own picture of who God is. God becomes the one with the horns. God becomes the one with the pitchfork. God becomes the one with the fire, right? Like, he's trying to paint God as the enemy and him as the hero, right? And that's not what we can't allow that. But it's so easy to fall into that if we let it. But we have to remember that even though I don't see the beauty in the moment, even though I don't get to see what God's doing because it's not for me to know, right? God's ways are not our ways, it says in the scripture. I have to be diligent. I have to persevere. I have to believe in the truth of who God is and what I mean to him. And in that, we can find hope to get through those times. And then the picture starts to be painted in front of us. Right, I would have never known 9 years ago that you and I would be sitting here on 339 episodes, and I would have literally traveled the globe sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. I would have told you were nuts as I was looking for something to take my life 9 years ago. But God's ways are not our ways. And we can get stuck in these things and we can turn completely from him because that's what the evil one wants. That's what they were saying earlier in the catechism, when Christ in inexpressible grace gave us blessings better than those the demon's envy had taken away. Right? And so we have to remember that in this. And then then we can look back and say, Lord, even though I wish my husband was here, even though I wish my wife was here, even though I wish my mom hadn't died of cancer years ago, right? All the thing with my mom set me on a course to going on the worst hole in my life to where I was arrested, and then all this happened after that. So even good came out of the loss of my mother. Do I wish she was here? Yes, every single moment. But God has given me so many blessings. Jacob was born right before that. So it wasn't like I was taking something and not giving a gift. The Lord gave me the gift of my son that Angela and I could love and pour into, even in my brokenness that I didn't do well. Then God gave us something good in the midst of that loss. And this is what all of us have to realize. God is not our enemy. Our mistakes don't have to define us. And I can be angry at that suffering and the circumstances that brought me here, or I can rejoice in the goodness of God for bringing me through it and then start seeing the blessings in all of it.
Well, God's greatest love is redemption, coming back to him. God's love of free will, even though we don't understand it, is a gift of love, either for us to choose him or to not deny him. He loves us either way. You were talking about how a beautiful story it touches the heart because it's redemption. A beautiful story has redemption in it. And not to soften it or to sideways it, but I was thinking this Kylo Ren, in Star Wars, you're on
the movies today.
Yeah, I know. Sorry,
Dynamite, Star Wars.
But
is that why you couldn't be here for some episodes?
Probably
you're watching
so, yeah, right. I was binge watching, but he's the son of Han Solo and Princess Leia, who are like the two protagonists of the story, and yet he falls because of his anger. You probably know more better than I do the storyline, but anyways, he falls to anger. He feels that he is resentment towards his parents, that they don't listen to him, they don't understand him, and so he runs to something that gives him that, hey, I'll listen to you. Come on, what's going on? You know what? They're wrong. They shouldn't be like that. And that's the devil. The devil will tempt us to say, hey, everything you're feeling is someone else's fault. You have a right to feel the way you feel. You have the right to live the way you want to live. You have the right to say what you want to say because you know what? You're important, And I think we all fall for that, that we think this self-hype of importance, that my opinion's more important than anybody else. It's a soul stealer Because what we're doing, we're disconnecting ourselves from the faith, the community of faith. We're disconnecting ourselves from God because we're saying, God, I know better than you. All these things you put in front of me in my life, was a trap, and it's not. God's love is of a redemption, of opening up to reveal who you truly are and to come back to Him. That's why the prodigal son is such an amazing story that people just are drawn to it because they know what that's like. They feel it constantly because they know that God loves them so much that, and we struggle to love God as much as He loves us, and for me, like when I pray the rosary or, I pray in hopes for Barry for guidance that may I one day love your son as much as you love him. And if I'm able to even come close to that on this earth, then I know that I understand a little bit more of who God is in my life. And I think all of us who struggle with identity of love, identity of why am I here, what's the point of me being here, it's a sickness that can destroy your life, can destroy your heart, can destroy your relationships, and that is something that isn't true. That whatever that thought, whatever that voice, whatever that concept is false. That's not true. You are here for a reason. You're here to love God, to serve God, but also to bring others to God, by your story, by your desire, by your prayer, by your daily walk in life, even though it's suffering and it's hard. People will look at you and say, what are you doing that this doesn't affect you? And then that is an open door to bring people to know God's love. And some days really are terrible, I mean, we all have it. People listen and have days that are just terrible, and you say, oh gosh, I'm going to be fired, because I didn't do this report or whatever. But, there's grace still in the world too as well. But knowing that people love redemption stories, you are a redemption story. So, be the main character of your own life. Stop thinking that you're not important.
Well, and that's the thing. Like everything in life comes down to a choice. You were talking about the devil trying to beat us down and convince us that like this is all there is and everything is everybody else's fault. And that's the whole thing he does. That's what he did to Adam and Eve. He had them choose themselves over God. He convinced them that God was withholding on them, that God wasn't who He said He was. And that's what he tries to do in each and every one of our lives. So we have to realize, like in temptation, in these moments of despair, in these places and our mistakes and our failures where the devil comes to condemn us, we have a choice. There's always a choice. Everything in life is a choice. Mm-hmm. My disposition is a choice, right? The way I choose to live my life is a choice. The way the thoughts I allow to occupy my space and basically control how I behave and act is a choice. The devil convinces we don't. Like, you're just here. There's no way out. Mm-hmm. You're imprisoned. You're bound. But what does Jesus say? I came to free those who were bound, right? To comfort those who mourn. I've been anointed to heal those who are sick, right? Like all of these things that Jesus says, this is exactly what He came to do. So we have a choice in the matter. And the choice is we can either see our faults and our mistakes and the things that we don't like about ourselves and the places we're in right now as our ends, or we can choose to look at it as a beginning, right? That this is just the beginning of a story. Mm-hmm. Then maybe if this is a 100-page book, maybe this is the first 50 pages. Maybe it's just a sentence on a paragraph of a page of our life. But that's what we have to realize it is. There is so much more to our lives, to our story, God willing that we live, to be 80, 90 years old, whatever. We have so much more time in front of us, especially if you're a young guy, right? As long as God has ordained that you're going to live that long, right? We never know that, but like we have so many opportunities and we get so caught up in these mistakes, these faults, these failures, these places of despair. They become so big to us. They take up our entire mind space, our mind palace, if you will. Right. They take up all that because that's all we see, because the devil just continues to put it in front of our face all the time. It's like he's putting blinders on you like a horse, and that's all you see. And if you allow that, you start to navel gaze, you start to look down, you start to lose hope. Which is ultimately what he wants you to do, is to lose hope. But you have a choice in that. It's about changing our mindset. That's what Oh Happy Fault is. It's a reminder. It is a battle cry. Like, oh happy fault. I don't have to be defined by this mistake or by this trip up or this fall or this terrible thing that's happened. Yes, there's a way to deal with it, and it's to give it to the Lord. Right? You say, give it to God in all things and let him deal with it. Let him turn it into something good, because God knows he did it with the fall. He did it by saving all of us. We're here today talking about this because he had a plan. He didn't leave us in that place. He tried to get us out again and again and again, and we kept turning away. And finally, he gave the one thing he loved more than us, right? That's what St. Augustine says, for God even loves sinners. For it was said, God so loved the world that he gave his only son. It's John 3:16. And so, as I said, these are just sentences in a paragraph on a page in the story of our life, but why do we let one paragraph define our whole lives? We don't have to be that way. God doesn't leave us in our mistakes. He comes to save us again and again and again. This is what I love about the Catholic faith. We don't look at it like, well, Jesus redeemed us on the cross and then we have no part to play. We just kind of meander through life and then one day we wind up in heaven. We believe that there's a way that we have to live our life, that we have to work in accordance with God's grace. And that's the truth. God's grace is available for us all the time, but we have to choose it, accept it, and allow it to permeate in our lives. There is a choice. And this is what we have to remind ourselves all the time, is that God comes to save us. That lifeline, that flotation device, that arm is always reaching down, but it's up to us to grab it. And so when we can scream out, oh, happy fault, and remembering what God has done for Adam and Eve, what God has done for others. I hope that when people are in places of despair, they go like, if he could do that for John Edwards, why couldn't he do that for me? No matter where you are in different circumstances or whatever, if he could do that for me, and that's the redemption you talk about in beautiful stories. It gives us hope. It makes us believe that these places we're in are not the end of our story. Yeah. It's a speed bump. But if we can start looking at it like that, then we can really believe what St. Paul says, where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. It may seem bad, but there is never enough bad to outcast the good. It's like Father Larry used to say, you can be in a dark room and be scared to death and enveloped by darkness, and all you have to do is light one single match and it will illuminate everything. Right? That light comes into our life, and that light is Jesus Christ, and he's waiting for each and every one of us. We just need to adopt an attitude of hope and gratitude, knowing that nothing is ever beyond God's power and love to redeem us, and that he looks to come and redeem us again and again and again. Yes, we've been redeemed by Christ giving his life on the cross, and that drop of his blood is enough to bring us to salvation, to bring us to heaven. But we still have our heart to play, and we still have to cooperate with God's grace in every aspect of our life, especially in those dark times. There is dignity and potential to become who God created us to be for each and every one of us. For those of you listening right now, I'm speaking directly to you, whether you're watching or listening. There is dignity and potential for each and every one of you to become who God calls you and created you to be. It's a lifetime of work, but it can start today. It's not about what you've done. It's about what you have the potential to do. What you have the potential to do. Don't let your mistakes and sins define you. That time needs to be over in your life. If you keep doing that, you're going to keep winding up in the same place. And one day you may not be here because the pressure and the pain becomes so much. But you don't have to live in that. You can believe what we're saying. You can dare to believe. You can hope. And you can scream out, oh, happy fault. That's where that song, oh, happy day, comes from. It's where, oh, happy day. It's when people realize what Jesus has done for them, and that it's not just for some people, it's for everyone. And it's right there at your grasp. So let's talk about how to, Victor, real quickly. How do we start to do this in our life? First, don't let your sins and mistakes define you. Remember that, oh, happy fault. In that moment, yell that out. When you're in that despair, oh, happy fault. I know this moment doesn't have to define me. I know this doesn't have to be a place where I sink into despair, but I can look upward. Stop looking down. I can stop navel gazing and look up at the one person that can bring me out of this. That's an invitation. Oh, happy fault in the midst of our struggles. We need regular prayer. You need to be growing in your spiritual life, right? That starts with prayer. I need to converse with God so that he can continue to reorient my identity. He can continue to tell me how loved I am through my prayer and through my conversation with him. We need to be able to receive, we need to be receiving the sacraments on a regular basis. There's no greater sign of God's love and a greater path of redemption than the sacraments. You can go back and listen to our episodes around Lent and listen to all that. But like the sacraments themselves, the Eucharist, confession, your marriage, so many great parts of the sacraments are there to divine God's love for us and be a way out of these places. That's the one single thing that I give so much credit to in my life that has kept me on the path of who I'm supposed to be and who I want to be for God. In the midst of all my struggles that still come now, is the Eucharist each and every day, going to daily Mass and receiving the Lord and letting His strength become my own. So you need to be receiving the sacraments on a regular basis. We need to build accountability and accompaniment through groups and community of men. That's what we talked about in the beginning. We want to make sure that no man has to go it alone. That it doesn't happen if we don't build places in our parishes where that can happen. So if you're out there and you're tired of doing it alone, then look to build a men's group. We can help you. Right? You don't have to do it alone. We've done the legwork for you. We will actually walk alongside you, your priest, your pastor, your parish to build something. We've done it again and again and again, and we will continue to do it. And we'd love to do it with you. That's not an ad. That's not hey, book us for something. That's the truth. You don't have to go it alone. And we're here to make sure that you don't have to go it alone. You can find that accompaniment and that accountability that we all need, that Victor and I have experienced in our men's group. If not for all these terrible things that happen in my life, we wouldn't have that group to go through every week, built in the way it is based on vulnerability and authenticity. And our lives have changed because of it. Finally, all of this can help you embrace your faults as we step towards holiness. Like all of this, you can go to God, I'm not perfect, but I know you love me anyway. You can hear that in prayer. You can find that in the confessional. You can have His mercy and grace pour out on you, but it starts with you. Victor, any final thoughts from you here?
No, I know the topic is happy fault, and I know a lot of people right now are struggling with what that is in their life. But and as I said before, if you or someone that you know is dealing with depression, anxiety, or addiction, contact us. We can help them find a group. I can help them find a placement or a person to help them out because we're all our brother's keepers. We really are, and we want to make sure you guys are safe. You guys find a place where you need to be and grow in your self-identification of Christ in your own life and be part of the community.
Yeah. So guys, look, if you do need help like that, if you need help and you want us to be there with you through all of it, if you want our help, whether it's to start a group or for Victor to get you placed somewhere, any of those things, we're happy to do that. All you have to do is go to justaguyonthepew.com and click start a men's group or fill out the book me form or any of that stuff. And we'll try to put you in contact with places either where we can help or other people can, because we're not made to do it alone. So folks, as a final thought here, all this is possible for you. Restoration is a journey, and it starts with recognizing that God is bigger than your mistakes, right? All that stands in the way of your new beginning is you. All that stands in the way of all this beginning for you, this change of mindset, is your choice to start yelling, "Oh, happy fault," instead of going backwards down into the place that you've been for so long. Let the Lord define who you are and who He's calling you to be. So in the words of St. Leo, "Oh, happy fault, which gained for us so great a Redeemer." This is where we have to keep our mind. There's hope for you, and we're willing to walk alongside of you to help you find it. Thanks for your time, folks. We're going to close in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, this world could be so difficult. It could be so hard to walk just in the difficulties of this world and the struggles that we face, but we weren't made to do it alone. And Lord, even in the greatest fall, the fall of humanity, you were able to turn the great evil into something profoundly much better, into a greater good in the person of Jesus Christ coming to be incarnate and to give His life for ours. Lord, you want to redeem us in these places of our life each and every day. We just need to make the choice to look up at you, to yell, "Oh, happy fault," and to believe it in our life, to give ourselves that chance at hope, and then to chase after it with all of our being. Lord, thank you for who you are. Thank you for who you call us to be. And thank you for your great love and your redeeming mercy. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.